All right, welcome into another episode of the Pegasus Podcast. As you'll be able to see from the title of this episode, my guest today is Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform. So, Grover, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be with you.
Yeah, thanks for coming to Louisville. We appreciate all the work you do, and again, thanks for stopping by to have a conversation with us today.
Absolutely.
So, we're about a week and a day, I guess, removed from the midterm elections here. So, first, what are sort of your reactions to what happened? And then let's talk about what that means for maybe policy going forward.
Sure. What it means for a pro-growth, limited government agenda in the short term is devastating. It means nothing happens for 2 years. Nothing good happens for 2 years. The Democrats will hold the House. That means they can hold any vote they want and refuse any vote they want. Yep. I was at a silly meeting yesterday where a bunch of conservatives were thinking, what are the votes we can put on the floor to embarrass the Democrats? None, because they won't let you do that. Yeah. And they will structure the vote so you can't put amendments on. And the Republicans were at times strict, never as strict as the Democrats had been, in cutting off debate. But then they opened it up at various points. The Democrats will not do that. Okay, they will not make that mistake of allowing Republicans to put votes on the floor. So nothing comes out of the House, not even embarrassing votes for the Democrats, other than when they get carried away and do terribly left-wing things and embarrass themselves. Yes. On the Senate side, we strengthened, but not as much as we should have, given the states that were up. I mean, losing Montana was a disaster. Losing Arizona was very disappointing. Now, we're stronger than we were a year ago, or will be stronger than a year ago. McCain has left. He was the guy who at the last minute could stab you in the back. That's gone. Alaska, the lady in Alaska, Murkowski, is generally a sound vote, but then there are these odd positions she takes, and it's never quite sure why. It doesn't make any sense. She knew better than what she did on Kavanaugh. But on the other hand, her vote wasn't needed, so perhaps for her own reasons she wanted to throw a vote the other way. Collins was strong and competent and knows what she's doing, and votes her state and votes generally correctly. Disappointed on that, and she did not disappoint on Kavanaugh, nor on taxes. So we have a strong Senate, and Mitch McConnell. I realize I'm in Kentucky here, so you guys kind of know this, but Mitch McConnell is the greatest Senate leader in memory. He is why we have 2 Supreme Court appointments, not Trump. Before Trump ever got elected to anything, we could have lost Gorsuch and the majority, okay? But the guy who stopped that was Mitch McConnell, working with the Republican Party. Didn't fight him, but if he just sort of said, well, let's think about it, we'd have all been run over by a truck. They spent millions of dollars attacking Grassley in Iowa, demanding that he hold that vote, okay? And Mitch McConnell was supportive of Grassley. Grassley had internal strength. So the Senate's in pretty good shape. I wish we had 2 or 3 more senators. But as we move forward, the Supreme Court is now in the control of people who actually have read the Constitution, all of it, like the Second Amendment as well as the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment and things like that. And that happened because Trump was president. We wouldn't have had that second appointment without that, and because Mitch McConnell put it together. So that was a tremendous accomplishment. So Supreme Court for 10 years, 15 years, is solidly pro-Constitution, meaning they won't be imagining things. And the House is in Democratic hands, but could be taken back in 2 years if the Republicans in the House and the modern conservative movement act like grown-ups.
Yeah, so you mentioned that for the next 2 years, probably nothing's going to happen.
Nothing good is going to happen.
Yeah.
The Democrats can say, we won't pass a defense budget unless you do X, Y, and Z, and X, Y, and Z will be pretty awful.
Yeah, there's been some talk of potential middle-class tax reform, something that both sides can go back and say, look at what we did for, the average Joe. Is there any chance of anything like that happening?
No, absolutely not. And the reason is, when Trump talked about further middle-class reduction, it was partially because he was irritated that the rather significant middle-class reduction that we got, a couple with 2 kids making $60,000 a year, the absolute median taxpayer, in point of fact, pays $3,500 less in taxes. Okay, that's a significant tax cut. But you don't hear that from CBS, NBC. And frankly, what's fascinating to me is a lot of Americans are less aware or even blissfully unaware of the tax cut because they have 83% of Americans have direct deposit. Mm-hmm. I could not tell you. I run a tax payroll. I don't know the difference in my 2-week paycheck because of the tax bill, because it goes straight to the bank and then my wife spends it. So it is very interesting that
what can actually be done to help people know, like, this is, you are making more money. You are.
We started a campaign called, look at your stub. Read your stub, right? Forgetting that most people don't have stubs. Mm-hmm. I needed one to prove, I don't know, where I lived or something the other day. Yeah. I had to go manufacture the stub because I don't get one for the paycheck, right? Yeah. For insurance or something. Several things. People are getting it as they look and they notice, hey, there's a bank account than there used to be. 2, people are seeing, there are 2 benefits to the tax cut. One was we increased your take-home pay. Mm-hmm. A tax cut is a pay increase. Mm-hmm. When the government takes less of your money, you have a pay increase in your take-home pay. Your boss thinks he's still paying you $40,000 a year, but your take-home pay goes up because the government steals less of it. The government stands between you and your employer, takes some of the money, they take less now. But in addition to that, somebody makes $60,000 a year roughly. We're expecting in the next several years to see that go up by about $4,000 and the reason the economists know that is that you can track productivity with how much capital is invested per worker. Mm-hmm. When you put more capital per worker, more computers, more equipment, and so on, they become more productive. When they're more productive, it's a sustainable pay increase. So we're looking at that kind of pay increase coming up. But the biggest winners in the pay increase question are people who had zero because they had no job under Obama. They, in many cases, had quit looking for work under Obama. And so they weren't even in the workforce. They didn't count as unemployed because you only count as unemployed if you're looking for work and you don't have a job. When you quit looking, you're not unemployed. Solve the problem. They can put you in jail. Hey, he's not unemployed anymore. But during the Clinton years, much of the improvement on some of the drop in unemployment was just that, people not looking anymore. But we have now people coming back in, getting jobs, and 4 million jobs since the president started, and that number is going to grow. It's all driven by the lower corporate rate, lower business rate, and that brought 2 things: lower business rate. We were at 35%. The Chinese were at 25%. We were at 35%, actually 39% if you count state and local corporate taxes. 39%. China's at 25%, Germany's at 25%, Ireland's at 12.5%, Hungary's at 9%. Okay, and we wonder how come we can't compete better in the world. The socialist Chinese are right are at 25%. We were at 39%. We took it down to 21%. We now are at a competitive position, and $500 billion, $500 billion of American capital earned overseas, which was kept from coming back because of our stupid tax policies, has come back in the first 6 months. And we're expecting to see another $1 trillion. That increases productivity.
I want to go back to something you were talking about before, sort of the direct benefit to people. And you said most people don't realize there's a little bit more in their pay stub. You guys have been really great at tracking sort of state-by-state benefits, people. And we've wrote a little bit about this too. But things like electricity costs going down, minimum wage going up, employers putting more money in pensions. Are we seeing a lot more of these kind of things too across the country? Yes.
At our website, atr.org/list, there's a little map of the states, and you can punch your state, and it'll give you the list of all the companies in Kentucky or West Virginia or any state in the nation, all 57 states. What you'll have is a list of companies that have formally and publicly announced we gave a bonus or a pay increase or a new benefit. Walmart does $5,000 for the cost of adoption for anybody. Those benefits flowed from the tax cut. Okay, and also all the public utilities, all the utilities like the people who provide electricity for you, or natural gas or water. They have lower taxes, and by law, they pass that on because they're a regulated utility. When Obama and Clinton raised business taxes, your electricity bill went up because that inside the electricity bill was the Clinton tax, the Obama tax. And now that it's cut, it's gone down. And they've all had to make not only public declarations, we are reducing rates because, but legal ones, because you have to file permission with the Public Utility Commission. Yeah. So that's how we know for sure. Yeah. And in all 50 states, not 57, despite what Obama says, in all 50 states, we have seen utilities drop costs. In Florida, some have dropped costs, but also when they had the big hurricane, usually they have to raise rates to pay for it. They didn't this time because of the tax.
And those are the kind of things that help average people more than anything, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Going forward, if nothing gets done in the next 2 years, what are going to be the biggest barriers in the next maybe 10 years to making sure we continue to tweak the tax code?
Sure. The tax code will not be improved until you have a Republican president, Republican House, and a Republican Senate. Mm-hmm. So if the Republicans take the House back, hold the Senate, re-elect President Trump or another Republican, then we'll see continued reduction in rates, continued reforms in the tax code. That is a huge, huge project. Very, very important. Absent that, all the interesting things will be at the state level. Look, the rest of the world, I was meeting with German legislators and Japanese legislators, and they said, we used to tell people, we have lower taxes than the Americans. You should invest in Germany, even though we have dumber energy policies and things like that. Like they don't like fracking, they don't like nuclear power, they like pretend energy, which costs more money, which really sucks if you're trying to make something that uses energy. But we steal less of your money when you earn money here. So a lot of people invested in Germany, Japan, other places. They've lost that. So now somebody in Brazil with $1 million or the United Arab Emirates or something says, where do I invest my $1 million or $10 million or $100 million? And more of the decisions in the United States because of the lower taxes. But then they have another decision to make. There are 50 states. Which one? Where do I invest? Mm-hmm. And that's where Texas going, no income tax, look at this. Yep. Florida, no income tax. Tennessee, no income tax, look at this. So the competition between the states to take those rates down, both for individuals and for businesses, is going to be very intense. And first movers always do best. Tennessee got a lot of that international capital because they had no income tax, and they flew around the world and said, look at us, right to work, no income tax. And Kentucky's going, we have an income tax, we don't have right to work. What about us? Now, Kentucky got right to work, but it has work to do on reducing its tax rates.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk now at the state level after the Amazon HQ2 that states need to go towards having sort of just good tax systems as opposed to just giving tax incentives. Do you see that sort of trending in the wrong way, and states saying, here's the best package we can give you, as opposed to just saying, like, let's be like Tennessee, let's be like Texas, let's be like Florida, let's have a competitive system that works for everybody, not just let's pick winners and losers because, ooh, look at shiny Amazon.
Okay. Long-term, Florida, Tennessee, Texas, North Carolina, which is moving towards zero, Arizona, which plans to move towards zero. These are very, very important project lines. And they will outperform the states like Illinois. Nobody gives out tax credits more than Illinois and New York, right?
Yep.
But so they have a headline, we brought X number of jobs. Well, they're talking about 5,000 jobs. And that in the United States, on any given month, millions of jobs disappear and millions of jobs are created. Mm-hmm. And they say, oh, look, there's 200,000 new jobs this month. Well, that's because there's 5 million disappeared and 5.2 million came out. There's a great deal of change. Mm-hmm. And so jobs disappear and people don't notice them, and jobs get appeared, and they only look at the top number. But those states like New York are hollowing out. And they've hollowed out upstate New York, mm-hmm. northern New York. They could go put some big plant there and give them lots of taxpayer money and so on, and get a headline and put it in every speech that Cuomo gives. But it doesn't change the fact that that is a bad strategy for New York and Illinois. And it's the loser states that tend to do it. And unfortunately, Virginia is like competing to be a loser state. because the governor there wants to raise taxes.
Okay, I want to switch gears a little bit here and talk about some of the other news of the day. One of the things you've been sort of really out front on is sort of vape and e-cigarettes, and the idea that this should be the next conservative cause. This is how we're going to win over voters.
Yeah.
You were on, was it Vice News?
Oh, yes, that was fun.
And so I believe, so yesterday, we're recording this on Wednesday. On Tuesday, the FDA has been cracking down on Juul, the e-cigarette company, and saying they're targeting minors, and so they're going to have to stop selling a certain amount of products, these kind of things. First, your reaction to that, and then overall, what you see as the problem with some of these regulations around e-cigarettes and vapes.
Sure. Look, we've been through this before with prohibition, and the FDA is as stupid as the people who put in prohibition. This is none of their goddamn business. Okay, they go, oh, it's not. First of all, people who quit smoking and use e-cigarettes, vape, are solving 98% of all their problems. There's nothing that goes into your lungs other than water vapor with this. So there's no lung cancer, any of that stuff. So it's just garbage. This is people. Their job, supposedly at the FDA, other than making themselves rich and giving themselves incredible pensions and wandering around thinking they're better than everybody else, is supposed to be to help the health of the American people. There's nothing more important than giving everybody who smokes cigarettes and chooses not to. Okay, it's your own business if you want to smoke cigarettes or drink bourbon, for crying out loud. Vaping isn't healthy. Neither's bourbon if you have enough of it, for crying out loud. Not as many things, but they're legal because it's none of the government's business what you do with your life. It's very annoying that they play this game at all. We've been through it. It's stupid. It's destructive, and they're killing people. And they are killing people by making it difficult to stop smoking. And they know they're killing people, and they don't care. So there are 10 million people who vape now, which means they've either stopped smoking or they smoke cigarettes less because they now vape. And they have different flavors and so on. It doesn't all taste like tobacco. Not everybody likes tobacco as it tastes. People like cherry and things like that, for crying out loud, which is why you don't have tobacco flavored soft drinks. But you do have cherry flavored soft drinks. We're giving consumers more choices. The government, panic. Gottlieb is the person, the worst decision President Trump has made is to put Gottlieb into that position. We were all under the impression that he wanted to do harm reduction, to back off and let people have more choices to reduce the harm that would have from their choice to smoke cigarettes, but so that you can choose not to if you want to, or if you're an adult, if you want to, that's your business. 10 million people. The fight to make vapor not taxed and abused, because states don't like vaping because it's not as heavily taxed as cigarettes, so they dislike vaping because they put the tax on cigarettes in order to get children not to smoke. It's always for the children. But now that people stop smoking and they're vaping, no, we didn't mean that. We wanted them to keep giving us money, so now we're going to tax vaping. They just want your money. They don't care about your health. They just want your money. And that Gottlieb is out there collecting tax revenue for incompetent mayors and incompetent governors is sickening. There are 10 million people who vape now. This is a political movement, and I had hoped that the president would get out in front of it. Ron Johnson, senator from Wisconsin, got elected, and on that night he said the vaping community put me over the top because there was a never enough vote. They had Johnson stuff at every vape shop in that thing as somebody who opposed taxing and regulating vaping out of existence. It is a huge, huge opportunity to give people more freedom for better health, and the FDA getting in the way of better health is criminal and obscene.
Why do you think they're doing that? Is it just sort of
a lust after New York Times headlines about how swell somebody is?
The sort of trend of the day? Is that sort of what it is?
Bloomberg, the rich guy from New York who runs a newspaper or press operation, Bloomberg News, and he gets lots of good press in that. And he hates the Second Amendment, and he hates people who drink soft drinks, and he's a big busybody. He wants to run other people's lives. When you get to be rich and powerful, you go, I'm smarter and better than everyone else. I should tell them how to run their lives. I ran my life pretty well, but I'm pretty good at running everybody else's life too. Savonarola's, anyway. He's put a lot of money lobbying people around the FDA because he doesn't like people who have the right to smoke cigarettes or vape or just about anything else. And so there's a lot of pressure on somebody like Gottlieb, who's the head of the FDA, that Trump put in order to free up things and make it easier to get drugs faster so they cost less. And so our drugs cost too much because Gottlieb isn't speeding up the process to approve drugs. He's screwing around with vaping. This is not, grow up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's always seems to be sort of a boogeyman for them to want. As a kid it was McDonald's, and then they always want to.
These are people who run their own lives poorly and want to run everybody else's life as their own second chance.
Yeah. All right, the last thing I want to talk about, and I think primarily you're known for your tax work and these kind of things, but one of the most unique things about you is your love of Burning Man.
Oh, yeah.
So first, let's talk about exactly what Burning Man is to you and why you go, but
sure.
Why you love it so much.
Well, I'm sure all your listeners are completely conversant with Burning Man, but briefly, for the last 30-plus years, starting in San Francisco and now moved out to the deserts in northern New Hampshire, there's a gathering. Now 70,000 people come out, spend a week in the desert, bring tents, RVs, something, trailers, so they can live in it. Bring their own water, bring their own food. It is amazing. A city of 70,000 people grows up, is there for a week, and then disappears, and you go back, and it's just desert. Yeah. And it's a lot of there's music. There's a lot of art. It's really focused around the art. There's a large Burning Man that can be 40 feet high. It could be 80 feet high, and then on the last night second to last night they burn it. Mm-hmm. And it's this beautiful thing with all sorts of explosions, like 4th of July goes on for an hour. But it's fascinating in a couple of things. It's all self-organized. I mean, it's like, I'm political, so I look at it. This is a libertarian paradise. This is they have 800 people who are rangers. They're not cops. They just, if there's a problem, they're the ones who'll help you. They're the ones, if there's a fight or something, they're the ones who'll talk everybody down. And this is, there was this year, it's always the last week of August, the last Monday of August to the first Monday in September. So the days move, but it's the same week. Somebody had a heart attack, died, got revived, fixed.
Wow.
Where was the government?
Desert. Yeah,
not the government. The guys on the ground taking care of themselves. A lot of self-sufficiency. And it really is a wonderful thing. It's not Woodstock. Woodstock was a bunch of young people who didn't remember to bring water or gasoline or money or food and went out, not into the desert, but just to a farm and screwed it up. That's why there wasn't Woodstock 2 the next year. But so it really is. It's a wonderful thing. I think it's just great. And people now people think they show you pictures of people dressed up wildly and all sorts of stuff, or not wearing all their clothes. And there's some of that, but that's it's 1 out of 100. That's not what it's all about. But it's legal, and so it's very, very, very interesting. And I recommend it to anyone. The Trump administration has done a good thing. The Obama administration extorted a lot of money from them. They said, if you want your permit, you're going to give us cash for this, that, and the other thing. So it was out-and-out extortion. And when I talked to Zinke, the new head of the Trump's guy, he said, well, we have a new policy under the Trump administration. No more extortion. How about that for a policy? No more extortion, which is really good. And they're going to expand it from 70,000 up towards 100,000. They could let more people. The desert's empty.
Yes,
there's plenty of space, miles in every direction. So it was. I'm glad that they're doing that, and they're looking to do a 10-year contract instead of every year act like it was some new thing that showed up. Oh, what's this? It's the same as last year. You moron! Sign the contract. So we'll do a 10-year contract rather than redo it, because you do it every year. Corruption, bribes, extortion. Do a 10-year contract.
All right. So for the next few years, besides just attending Burning Man, what's going to be some of the big things that Americans for Tax Reform wants
Well,
to
we're
focus
focused
on?
always on getting every elected official to take the pledge, to make the pledge never to raise taxes. 90% of Republicans in the House and Senate have done so, more than 1,000 state legislators. It is the project that stops tax increases in Washington. It's the effort that stops tax increases at the state level. When you have enough pledge takers, you are not going to have a tax increase in your state. The danger is always those Republicans who go, I don't want to raise taxes, but I wouldn't put it in writing. Now, if your neighbor said, "I won't eat your cat, but I won't put it in writing," you would keep your cat inside.
Yes.
Because why wouldn't you put in writing that you won't eat my cat?
Yeah.
No, but I don't want to. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, why not put it in writing?
That's fine.
So if they don't, anyone who says, "I won't put in writing that I won't vote for a tax hike," will vote for a tax hike.
That's a good way to look at it. All right. So you're in Louisville. Well, you're in Kentucky overall. You were at Old Forester last night.
Yes, that was great fun.
Woodford later today.
Oh, I didn't know that one.
Okay, yeah. Wow. It's on the schedule, so it's not.
Okay.
I didn't remember. But do you have a favorite bourbon? Can you declare your allegiance to one, or?
Well, I grew up in Massachusetts, Boston, Massachusetts. Then I emigrated to the United States. And in D.C., I was told, Northerners drink Scotch and Southerners drink bourbon. I said, well, I'm from Boston, so I thought I'd drink Scotch. Anyway, I don't like Scotch. I just don't.
Yeah.
But it took a while. Okay, I have to have a drink. Okay, I'll have Scotch. Then finally I said, you know what? You don't have to drink this stuff.
Yeah.
So I discovered that bourbon is actually quite good. And so if I have a drink, it'll be bourbon. And I like Maker's Mark, and I like Woodford Reserve, and not terribly picky, Jack Daniels, but Maker's Mark, Woodford Reserve, I think if somebody else paying for it.
Yeah, right. Anything if it's free, it's the best one you can get, right? You mentioned the website, atr.org.
Yeah.
Anywhere else people can follow you or follow along, those kind of things?
Sure. I tweet on Twitter at Grover Norquist, and they tweet about my daughters, 9 and 10. Now, have you talked to your listeners about who Pegasus was?
No. So I know you're a bit into the mythology of it all. So if you want to explain that. I mean,
my 9-year-old is studying Greek and Roman mythology, and Pegasus, the winged bird, is the offspring of Poseidon, the Greek god of the oceans and water, or Neptune, if you speak Latin.
Yes.
Romans call it Neptune. The Romans just took all the Greek gods and gave them new names, so it's slightly confusing. Yeah. And Medusa. And people remember Medusa as the woman who'd become a witch and had the snakes instead of hair, and if you looked at her, you turned into stone. And so that was kind of sad. But before that part of her career, she was from Libya, very, very beautiful, and did something to irritate the gods and get the curse. But she was so beautiful that Neptune, Poseidon, and she had a child, which was Pegasus.
Yes, yeah.
I'm not quite sure exactly how that'll work, but it's mythology, so they could make it work.
Very nice. Yeah, so...
and all the Cyclopses are therefore the siblings, because Cyclopses are also children. The guys with the one eye are the children of Neptune. Oh,
okay. Yeah, so I guess I have never explained this, but Pegasus is typically sort of a symbol of wisdom and those kind of things, and of course, horse racing being so important and horses being so important in Kentucky, that's sort of where the name came from, was sort of blending those two things, the idea of sort of wisdom and horses and very Kentucky-esque. And so so that's where the Pegasus name comes from. If anybody was wondering, if they thought, man, what's sort of a strange name, we get asked a lot. So there's the Pegasus Parade here. There's Pegasus Transportation. You might see on the highway sometimes, the 18-wheelers, and people will say, "Are you guys affiliated with them at all?" And
what's the oil company that always had Pegasus on its gasoline stations?
Oh, I'm not sure.
It's a while ago. It's like from the 50s or 60s.
I can
movies.
see the logo because I think I've seen it in like thrift shops or something like that, but I can't think of what that was. But yeah, so people ask us sometimes where the name comes from because it's kind of unique. Everything here is typically bluegrass or something like that. And so we're a little bit more unique in where our name comes from. But yeah, that's where Pegasus comes from. So. If anybody ever comes to the office, we have a big statue of Poseidon right out front.
Pegasus is dad.
Yes. Yep. So, that statue weighs about 500 pounds, and we had to get it in here with just a little dolly. So it's staying here if we ever move offices too.
Oh dear.
But yeah, so that's where the name comes from. Any last words, Grover, on anything?
HER.org on our
Okay.
website, and we'd love to share with you our work on taxes. And of course, we work with all the state think tanks and organize a center right meeting in D.C. About 150 center right activists get together every week to talk about what's happening in national politics, and then 41 states, including Kentucky, have similar meetings.
Yeah. So if you check out their website, we've also linked to it before. You can look at all the companies in Kentucky that have given benefits since the passage of tax reform. Last we reported, I believe it was over 100,000 Kentuckians have seen direct benefits. So hopefully that continues to grow. All right, Grover, thanks for joining us. Thanks for all the work you do, and we'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
All right.